Suicide is a tough topic, but the Washington County Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition wants you to know that there is always hope. We are a caring community reaching out to provide compassion and hope for a community free of suicide. In the next half hour, we'll talk with community partners to identify risk factors, raise awareness, and discuss prevention strategies. Hello, and thanks for joining us on another edition of Reach for Hope. I'm Melissa Anderson. The holiday season can be a tough time for many who have experienced the loss of a loved one or have no one to spend time with. With me today to talk about how to get through this holiday blues and get some support with that is Claudine Discala. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Hello again, Melissa.
Yep, been here before. Now, Claudine, you're the vice chair of the Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition here in Washington County. Explain to us why you're so invested in helping others who may be struggling with suicide ideology.
So I lost someone to suicide way long ago, 30 years ago. So back then, it was such a taboo subject, no one even talked about it. And so you just kind of pushed it to the back, and there were a lot of us that were carrying a pretty heavy burden because we never talked about it, we never healed it. Therapists really didn't know how to exactly differentiate between regular grief and suicide loss grief. It's much more complicated than other kinds of grief. So now it's different. Now there's so much more available. There are so many studies done, and therapists are better trained, and there are resources all over the place. So I am involved, and I'm very invested in it because I want people to know that the help is there.
Yeah, and it is difficult because there's a lot of unanswered questions of why and how and what if I could have done something different, but it's difficult because you can't blame yourself for something like that. Unfortunately, you just can't do that.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, we talk about the holidays. It's a rough time. So if you lost someone around the holidays, whether it was suicide or not, it's just a tough time because you're thinking about that person. They're not there with you to share the holidays with, spend time with. How difficult is it then for people who may be singing the blues this time of year, who should be singing Christmas carols?
Yeah, that's a big one. So you've already got this sadness that you're kind of walking around with and this heaviness, and then you're looking around and there's the decorations and there's the music and there's the happy commercials and everyone seems happy and you're not. And that can be isolating in and of itself and kind of compound it. And then we like to compare, like, wow, they're happy and I'm not happy at all. So that's kind of a double whammy. And then you've got the anxiety that comes on that you're supposed to be celebrating and you really don't feel like celebrating. So there's this dread on top of it. And just the weight of the grief. So we feel we're sort of less tolerant of stress. Like we already had stress, and now we've got holiday stress. So you've got that. Socializing becomes more difficult because you feel like I have to now put on a mask and be fake, and that's not how I really feel. So that adds more stress to it. And then sometimes we kind of, when we're around people, we feel like we're seeing them sort of take people for granted, and now that we've suffered this loss, it's hard to see that. And we also see people kind of make a big deal over things that just aren't important. So it's you feel like you're sort of out of place,
like you don't belong or something. And that's the depression setting in, I'm sure. So how do we help ourselves through that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that we can do. I would say the big picture is to plan ahead. So there's a lot of expectations of us, but there's only so much capacity we have to do things. So plan ahead, for example, plan on not like if there's a lot of parties, there's holiday parties, there's office parties, there's organization parties, then you're going to get together with your family or other friends. So really think about, what is my limit? What am I going to do? And set the limit ahead of time. Like, let's say you have 3 parties that you're invited to and you feel like you have to go. Maybe you need to go to 1. maybe you need to go to 2. Or if you absolutely feel like you have to go to all of them, and maybe these are 3-hour parties, you could say to yourself, well, I'm going to go for an hour. And if you feel good while you're there, great, stay. But set that boundary for yourself, that expectation for yourself that I'm just going to go for an hour. And it's also helpful to let someone know at wherever you're going to be, if it's a family event or a holiday party for work, or just one person that will know you're struggling so that they can just sort of be there for you.
Help you monitor yourself and your own condition and how
Yeah.
you're feeling. And
Yeah.
emotions are very strong and they're very hard to deal with. And a lot of times other people don't understand that. They don't see it. And if, like you said, if they don't know, they're not going to help you through it, or they're just going to look at, oh, he's a bump on a log.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we really need to deal with it. So what can we do to try to help others with this if we know about it, if we're on the other end?
Yeah. So one thing is you can encourage people to come out and participate, but don't force. Just encourage and let them know that you're there for them at the event, because they might have some anxiety about going, or maybe they feel like they're going to break down or whatever they feel. So at least if they know there's one person there that they can turn to, maybe step outside for a little while. So you can just let them know that you're there for them. And the other thing is to be a good listener. We're used to, in a normal everyday situation, we kind of vent back and forth to each other. And, well, you have this problem, and we listen, and then I have this problem. And so you want to hold space, which is a term that's come up a lot lately. Is holding space is a little bit different. It's you're really there for them. Let them talk. Let them say whatever they want to say without giving your opinion, your advice on the matter, and just sort of mirror back what they're saying. In other words, I get it. I hear that.
Right.
This must be difficult.
And don't compare yourself to them and say, well, I remember when this happened to me, so this is how I dealt with it.
Yeah, and that's
hard to do.
That's so well-meaning. It is so well-meaning, because
Yeah.
you want them to feel like, well, I do know how you feel, but really everyone's unique.
That's true. So I understand you have a support group. We've talked about that before on this show. Tell us about that, when it meets, and who is it for? And does this help address issues like this?
Yes, this is a great group to come to. It's called SOS, Suicide Loss Support Group St. George. There are so many out there. So the SOS stands for Survivors of Suicide, and it is confusing. I've had people call me and say, is this a group if you've attempted suicide? It's not. It's a group for people who've lost someone to suicide.
Okay.
So, and they're considered survivors because the suicide rate among survivors is higher. Because once you've experienced someone close to you doing this, you kind of feel the same way. So that's why they're called survivors. So it's SOS, Suicide Loss Support Group St. George. I just recently started a page on Facebook, so you can find me there. I think you'll have a graphic on it. It's got a very colorful bunch of hands sort of intertwined with the title. So it meets the first Thursday of every month from 6:30 to 8 p.m. in town in St. George. And I do post updates on the page, and you can reach me through the page also. I just like to know if you're coming. But mine is, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm a peer support facilitator. So I've been trained as a facilitator, and I just have the lived experience of going through it. So we welcome everybody. It's adults and children. It's appropriate for everybody. It's very informal. You don't have to talk if you don't want. You just come and listen. But I know we all get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did you say that meets again?
It's the first Thursday of every month from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m.
And where at?
It's in town. It's at the RRCI Center in town. So if you do want to come, I can give you the address and that.
That would be great. So,
Yeah.
and you've got a Facebook page?
We have a Facebook page too, and it says you can look up SOS Suicide Loss Support Group St. George.
Great. That's awesome to know that you've done that, and you're reaching out to help others, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for
You're
doing
welcome.
that.
And I want to say also, there is another group. We're not in competition, so I always like to let everybody know that also meets in town, and it's, as far as I know, the third Tuesday of every month. If you can't make mine, and that one's called Loved Ones Suicide Survivors Support Group.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So just Google it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So obviously, this has helped other people in the past. How what have you seen since you've been conducting this, and how has it helped people?
Yeah, I mean, we have people in and out, and I love when people are out because that means it helped, and it means they're healing, and it means they're processing. So I've seen people come in and just not say a word for weeks and weeks, and then come in and finally start talking, and that's just a great thing to see. And I think the reason why it helps so much is because when we're in connection with people, that's when we heal. When we stay isolated and we're up in our own head and we replay the story in our head, which isn't always correct, especially with suicide loss, and we get out there and we have the courage to say, this is how I'm feeling about this, as crazy as it may sound, someone else is going to say, oh, you know what, I think the same thing. And then you can even see it in their eyes. There's almost this peace that comes over their eyes. And it's when someone says, yes, me too.
And I would imagine there's books and other support systems out there that will help with that, to get you, what you said, out of your head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's so much in terms of like books and Facebook groups and online resources and forums.
And meditation, I think, maybe might help. I don't know. I've heard that. Is that right? Does it work?
It can. I think with grief, meditation can be difficult.
Okay.
Because with just meditating, especially if you're new to it, you've got all these thoughts coming through your mind, so you want to just kind of let them come and go. But with grief, it's just kind of right there in your face, and it doesn't really want to go anywhere. So I found it hard to meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So what other information is out there to help those who may be struggling with these issues, especially during this time of year? I mean, we really, like you said, we talked a little bit about, everybody's singing and happy and joyous, and there's Christmas parties, and I don't know, sometimes you just don't feel like you fit in because your mind is on something else.
Yeah. There's so much now, and I have a list. I put together a list just for myself and then for some of the grief events that we've held here in St. George. And I know Reach for Hope is myself and one of the other ladies. We're trying to put together one big list for everybody, but I do have some. The biggies to go to during the holiday season are the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which I think everybody should know.
AFSP.
The AFSP.org has so many resources there. Like you were saying, there must be other. There are lists of books, and they have videos on there that they created, and articles from people who are going through it. So they're huge. The American Association of Suicidology is, I just found it recently. It's so good. There's so much stuff on there. They have a little tab at the top that says resources. Great stuff there. My favorite one absolute favorite is Alliance of Hope. So they are a little bit different in the sense that they have a forum on there, maybe 30 forums on there, along with a website with resources and blog posts. The forum is really the most amazing thing. It's like a support group, but you don't need to leave your house. So they've got different forums you can go into if you've lost a spouse, if you've lost a child, if you've lost a sibling. They have many categories of where you can go. They have something for veterans. They have a room or a forum room for first responders. They have murder-suicide forum. Like and it's there's really everything on there. And they have, their admins are the most kind, caring people on that site. I've seen people say, tomorrow is my 2-year anniversary of the loss of my person and I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to be on here. And everybody is like, yes, come on here. And they will stay on there the entire night because people from all over the world are on there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they'll just be chit-chatting all night long about this is how I feel and this is what I remember about them. And it's a very healing place to be.
Yeah, and if you've got that like kind feeling, it kind of makes you feel like you're not alone. And we've talked about that and talked about you're not alone.
Yes.
What can we do then as the general public to try to support and reach out to those who may have lost someone?
Yeah, I would say to just be more aware. And I think we're definitely doing that because there's so much more attention on mental health right now in general.
Mm-hmm.
So really almost anything I'm saying goes for anybody struggling with mental health. It is a bigger issue. So I know Reach for Hope and Live On Utah have campaigns going on where you ask, how are you? And the person says, fine. And you don't stop there. Just say, no, really, how are you? And that just sort of opens up a conversation. I just did that to someone else through text the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just started a conversation. So you want to, maybe you have to draw it out of someone sometimes, but it's important.
And especially people who have lost, like, say, spouses, elderly people who have lost spouses, and it's this time of year and they're sitting at home alone and the Christmas tree, there's no Christmas tree because they don't feel like putting one up. They don't really feel like celebrating anything, but, just to stop by and bring them some banana bread or something to cheer them up and say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. And even if they don't have anyone to spend it with, or to invite them to dinner.
Yeah.
Anything can help.
Right.
Because we don't know. Think about putting yourself in their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel? We don't know what they're going through and how difficult it is when it's this time of year. And everyone's, like you said, going to Christmas parties, having fun with kids, grandkids, and they might be alone. And that's a tough thing because they don't want to reach out. They just want to sit at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, you just made me think of two things, actually. Yeah. And I've done that too with the support group. I mean, this December is a crazy month, but I've said in the past, like, I know we already met, but if anybody wants to meet for coffee, I mean, how long does coffee take? Or, tea, whatever it is you drink, or a soda. Like, you meet for an hour in the middle of the day. It gets you out of the house. You talk for a little bit. So I think it kind of gets you out of yourself, gets you out of your house.
And also be engaged, like you said something earlier about being a good listener. But in order to listen, you want to be engaged with that person and maybe ask them about their, what did you do in high school, or what brought you here to where we live now? Did you go to college? What did you do? What was your previous job? Or just engage somehow to let them understand that you care about them and you really want to know what they did in their previous years.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be about the grief or the struggle. I think that is what puts some people off, because those are hard things to talk about. And I found that too with some of the suicide loss survivors. When we're in the support group, we are talking about the heavy stuff. And then after we're done, we kind of do that exact same thing where we're all just talking about other things. And it's an odd feeling because we're all just, this was so heavy 5 minutes ago and now we're laughing. Mm-hmm. So it's important to have the balance in a single conversation, but also during the holidays. It is important to try to balance out. Like, you don't want to go out, and there's a good reason for that. And maybe you do need to not go out and isolate a little bit, but the balance is go out for an hour, force yourself to maybe have the conversation with somebody to just have it a little lighter for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing somebody in your neighborhood that may be struggling, or maybe you yourself are struggling, how can we reach out to them and make sure that they're loved and wanted and needed? Because I think a lot of people who are going through stresses and traumas don't feel a purpose or don't feel worthy or don't feel that self-worth of, well, no one cares about me.
Yeah.
And I think that even just a simple box of candy or
Yeah.
I don't know, a
Something.
Christmas card,
Yeah. Or a Christmas
anything.
ornament or just something you can bring over. Or, um, and, this might be a little too much for some people, but if you want to engage with someone, already have some resources with you
Mm-hmm.
and not like on a piece of paper, but hey, I heard about this such and such group, and you might be interested in that.
Yeah.
Something in within their interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else can we share with those out there during the holiday blues that we can bring
Hmm.
a spiritual nature to it? Because the holidays are spiritual. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of it, and
Yeah.
a lot of times we're not connected with that either. Maybe they don't go to church. Maybe they don't
Yeah.
want to go because they feel like they don't want to sit alone or be left out or
Yeah.
struggle with that.
Yeah. I know. In terms of the grief during the holidays, I know what some people do, especially on that day, whether it's whatever the holiday is for you, and you might be around people, you don't really want to be around people, it's going to be a struggle, is to take that time in the morning to sort of honor that person in whatever form you want to do that in. Some people would like to cook a meal that was that person's favorite meal and have that. Some people want to light a candle. Some people want to read or journal. There's just so many different ways. Maybe you want to plant a seed somewhere. There's a lot of ways to just take that time to yourself and think of them and honor them and grieve them, and appreciate that they were in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that with my animals that have passed. Believe it or not, I remember the anniversary dates, and I keep thinking, gee, I wish an animal could live as long as I have, because I keep going through animals. Like I have a dog every so many years. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I remember this
Yeah.
about this dog and this about this cat. And so it can happen with not just
Yeah.
people,
Any grief.
but any kind of grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just it's a struggle, but we all have to learn how to deal with it. And there are coping skills as well as taking deep breaths and trying to put your mind somewhere else. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. 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 I know. I have a friend that the way they handle it, either whether it's on the day of a holiday or on the day of the anniversary of their death or whatever it is a special day that they know they have to deal with, is do it a little different. They say, okay, for 1 hour, I am going to cry and scream and I'm going to throw things or whatever I'm going to do. And I'm giving it 1 hour and then I'm done for the day.
Well, that's good to set that limit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the neighbors would be wondering what's going on over there. You'd be calling 911.
Yeah.
How can people reach out for professional help if they can't get past this grief during the holidays? What should they do? Is there a way?
Well, yes. In the moment, there's definitely the 988 number.
Yep.
That's up and running. So that's great to do.
Right.
There's also Southwest Behavioral Health in our community. So instead of going to the emergency room, if you feel that you're really down and in a dark place, you can go there. And that's 24/7. You can walk in. You have to be 18. Or if you know someone who's struggling, you can bring them in there. And it's better at handling the mental health issues.
And then I believe Intermountain also has a walk-in, a mental health clinic that we've talked about before, where they can help out. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Let's see. We talked about, and I would just say also, I mean, there are times when you don't want to be in person and you don't want to go to a support group, or you don't want to go to that holiday party, and that's fine. And you don't want to put up a tree, and that's fine. Just realize that this is what you need right now and honor that.
Yeah. Take care of yourself and take care of your friends and neighbors and your family. And well, I appreciate all that you do. Thanks for your support group, and hopefully people will reach out. And if not, we reach out to them, because it's a very solemn time of year for some, but we need to change that. And we need to remember that tomorrow's another day. and we can get through this.
Yes, and we're a community.
That's what I do. I go to sleep, I wake up and go, tomorrow's another day. It's going to be better tomorrow.
Yes,
right?
and we're a community, and we have to help each other.
That's right.
We have to open our eyes and help each other.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for what you do. And again, I'd like to say, don't feel ashamed or weak. Reach out for help, because that's what we're here for. We're here because there's always hope. So thanks for watching, and we hope you have happy holidays. God bless. The Reach for Hope Coalition wants you to know that we care about you and we are here to help. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, reach out. You're not alone. To access resources for yourself or others, visit our webpage at reachforhopeutah.org. That's reach4hopeutah.org. If you are experiencing a crisis, please call or text the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988, because you matter and there is always hope.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.